Afternoon, Cherries fans, and welcome to the latest opposition preview on Back of the Net. This weekend, we welcome Luton, a side we played recently in a 0-0 draw at Kenilworth Road. To discuss the Hatters, I have another very special guest. He was chairman of Luton Town between 2008 and 2017, and someone who you might just recognise from TV. It's a pleasure to welcome to Back of the Net, Nick Owen. Afternoon, Nick. How are you?
Hello. Good to see you.
And you as well. Well, firstly, someone of my age recognises you as being a famous face when it comes to TV presenting. But to those that don't perhaps know you, can you tell us, our viewers, a little bit more about your media background?
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially, I'm a journalist. I started in newspapers 52 years ago now. And after doing that for a few years, I got into local radio just when it was beginning to start on BBC. And then I got a phone call inviting me to have a go at television. So back in 1978, I joined what was then ATV and became Central TV. As doing sports presenting and commentating and reporting. I commentated on the 1982 World Cup actually in Spain. Saw a young man called Diego Maradona that I didn't know much about at the time. Thought he was quite good.
Okay. Yeah.
But I got a call to say they were going to launch a new breakfast station the following year called TV AM. Would I be interested in coming along as a sports presenter? And I thought, bit of a gamble, but you know, it's exciting, pioneering stuff. And so I did. I joined TV AM, and I was there on the very first day on air presenting the sport in 1983, February. Astonishingly, within 8 weeks, I was asked to become the main presenter. So I replaced David Frost and presented with Anna Ford, Angela Rippon and a few other people before the management said to me, we're changing everything. Who would you like in a perfect world? And I said, Anne Diamond. And they said, who's Anne Diamond? I said, well, Anne actually was a co-presenter with me at Central TV. We're big buddies. We'd love to get together again. So 6 weeks later, Anne was sitting next to me. I'm delighted to say, you know, it was a very successful partnership. And we did that for 3 or 4 years or so on breakfast telly. And I sort of got lured away to ITV Sport, back into sport, my first passion, my first love, and ended up doing a thing called Midweek Sports Special. And I hosted the Olympic Games in '88 and the World Cup in 1990 and lots of other bits and pieces in between. And amazingly, I got invited by the BBC, because this was all ITV. And BBC came along and said, do you want to get together with Anne again and do a mid-morning show? And I thought, yeah, I love working with Anne. We love doing, you know, current affairs, show busy things, a bit of everything, you know, a topical program. That was a fabulous time as well. And then that came to an end. And I then moved on to, because it came from Birmingham, Pebble Mill in the Midlands. I was asked by BBC Midlands Today, the regional program there, if I'd take that over. And I've been doing that now since 1997. God, don't. Lots of other things in between, hosted 3 or 4 game shows and done lots of things like Wish You Were Here, Royal Television premieres and things like that. So it's been a great experience, and I'm still going strong, I'm glad to say.
Fantastic. Well, of course, you're a massive Luton Town fan. When did your love for the club begin?
Way back in 1958. My father used to go. We came from a little town called Bournemouth in Hertfordshire, which is about 30 miles from Luton. And so when I got really interested in the game, he took me to my first game, which was September the 3rd, 1958, Luton v Leeds. We drew 1-1. First goal I ever saw was scored by a guy called Alan Brown from a left wing cross by Jimmy Adam. I can still see it now. I can still remember walking into the ground for the first time and seeing the beautiful green grass and goals with nets on. You know, you've got to remember at that time, you never saw football in colour. You never saw football on telly anyway, except on the cup final, and that was black and white. All the pictures in the newspapers are black and white. So go to a ground for the first time and suddenly, whoosh, it was all sort of in colour. It was absolutely thrilling. And I was so hooked that nothing has changed ever since. And I've seen a game every season since then. Well, hundreds of games every season since then, but not at the moment, sadly. I haven't seen a game since February.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to get back into the stadiums as soon as possible. I know that we had 2 games where fans could get back into the ground, but unfortunately, it's all gone backwards again. So hopefully, once the vaccine starts to roll out, we should be able to get back into the stadiums. But going on to your, when you actually joined the club, you took over as chairman in 2008, but it was following a very turbulent time for the club. do tell us a little bit more about the situation you inherited there.
Well, I mean, in 2006, Luton Town were in the playoff places or close to them in the Championship.
Yeah.
Then things started to go badly wrong. We got relegated from the Championship into League One. We got relegated the following season into League Two. We had our third administration in 10 years. So when I came along, or was invited along to be the figurehead of a consortium who wanted to put money into the club and try and save it, we were entering League Two, waiting for our punishment for all the administrations, etc., and got the dreaded news that we were being deducted a total of 30 points. So we started the season 2008-9 on minus 30, which I still think is absolutely outrageous. We all felt that bigger clubs wouldn't have been dealt with quite so harshly. And it's unthinkable. It was the heaviest punishment meted out to any football club in Europe, let alone in our country. So at that stage, we'd got together as a consortium, and so we had to face the start of that season, 2008-9, on minus 30. And it was pretty tough old time. But we had 3 administrations in 10 years, which seems pretty reckless. And you can see that. But the trouble is that it's the fans that get penalised, the people who really care about the club. And so it was a very, very difficult time. But I'll have to say there's one highlight in that first season, because we won the Johnstone's Paint Trophy against all the odds, really. The final was a fantastic day. We had 42,000 Luton fans in the ground at Wembley. And we were playing Scunthorpe, who were near the top of League One and about to go into the Championship. And we beat them in extra time. So, you know, take that one day in isolation. Sensational, great memories. But overall, a couple of weeks later, we were relegated into the conference. That was tough, really tough.
And it was incredibly harsh, you know, from my memories of that season as well, of all the punishments given out, because we wasn't dealt with so harshly as Luton were, but both ourselves and Rotherham got deducted 17 points. We had our own great escape. It's a lot of Cherries fans like myself will believe that our club wouldn't be here had Eddie Howe not turned it around and we'd gone into the conference. What was the mentality at the start of that season? Of course, Sheffield Wednesday this year have started on, it was minus 12, but it's been deducted to minus 6 now. You know, minus 30. Did you think straight from the beginning that it was too big a deficit to turn around?
Yeah, just incidentally, Sheffield Wednesday appealed against their minus 12 and got it down to minus 6, as you say. We were told we couldn't appeal. Can you believe that?
It's crazy.
It was so harsh. Yeah, I totally agree with what you say there. Anyway, well, obviously, we thought we were up against it. It was horrendously tough, but we did think, you know, we'll give it a go and see what we can do. And you know, in terms of a normal season, we would have finished mid-table on the points or the results we had. But by Christmas, when we're still virtually only hovering around naught, it was looking impossibly tough. I don't see how any team can overcome that deficit. So we faced up to it, and basically we were building for the future all the time, and planning our back, knowing that we were likely to be in the conference. But it was a sickening blow for a team that in 2006, as I said to you, had been in the Championship, and suddenly we were in the conference. It was quite a shock to the system. But having said that, the conference was a great experience. It was 5 years, you know, it took us to get back. It was a great experience. Met so many wonderful people who love football and are involved in their football clubs for one reason: love of the game, love of their community, love of the football club. And I found it quite exhilarating meeting some of these people. And I would say Luton fans have probably visited more different grounds in the football pyramid in this country than fans of any other club, because, you know, we're used to playing Anfield and Old Trafford and so on. We're also used to playing at Hayes and Yeading and Histon and Telford and Tamworth. So it's been a very varied, roller coaster, interesting experience being a Luton fan. Wouldn't change it for the world, but was a very tough time. And year after year, trying to get back into the Football League where we felt we belonged, obviously, it seemed to get tougher every time.
And as a Bournemouth fan, it was sad to see Luton go down that season. They've always seemed a similar size to ourselves. And of course, Kenilworth Road is one of those landmark grounds of English football where you have to go through somebody's back garden to actually get into the stadium. So it's an amazing place to go to if anybody hasn't been. With those conference years, you had a couple of attempts where you got into the playoff final. And the first year, was it AFC Wimbledon that you was beaten on penalties quite harshly? Luton were the better side throughout that game. And then the following year, it was York 2-1. Tell us a little bit more about those experiences.
Yeah, I mean, we actually got to the semi-final of the playoffs our first year in the conference, but lost out York City. But yeah, the final, which took place at the Etihad against Wimbledon, was settled on penalties. That was absolutely devastating because right near the end of extra time, Jason Walker, our striker, headed onto the post. The angle of the post as well. It could have gone in, but it came back, at an angle.
Yeah.
That was agony to lose on penalties because, we just had to get back to the Football League. So that was a shattering moment. And then the following year, I think it might have been, we played York City, and I mean, it's well known now that we lost to an offside goal. So that was pretty demoralising as well. But you keep going. In the end, we won it in glorious style. Managership of John Still, who did a wonderful job at the club in so many ways. He turned the whole atmosphere within the club because there's a bit of a toxic feeling between fans and the club, and toxic feeling about life in general in football. And John Still quelled it all, got everyone pulling together, and we won, as I say, in absolutely cavalier style and got back into the Football League. But it was tough going at times. It really was hard, and some very intricate sort of outposts in the conference pyramid. It was hard going, but I did, enjoy the experience in many ways. I said earlier, and it's experience now that I wouldn't have missed. But my goodness, it was so tough for everyone involved in the football club. But I have to say, our fans were sensational. We averaged getting on for 8,000 at home game in the conference now. We took thousands to away games. Sometimes we, trebled the average gate at a conference club when we played them away just by taking all our fans to the games. And on top of the loyalty of the fans, which was outstanding, and they could easily have dropped away, as you can imagine, it was the investors, the guys who put money into the club when it seemed such a tough cause. I mean, just getting out of administration costs so much money because you have to A, pay off all the creditors, and B, put in the money to prove that you can survive for the next 3 years, and so on. There's lots of detail, which I'm not totally au fait with because I wasn't involved in that aspect of it. But it's a big ask for people to do that, and it could just be money down the drain if it doesn't work. And these guys have been rewarded now, I'm not saying financially, but in terms of emotionally, psychologically, to see their football club way back up in the Championship. It's a great time. Just talking about Bournemouth, I agree with you that it was desperately harsh on Bournemouth and Rotherham as well. And it gave me great pleasure as a Luton fan to see Bournemouth rise up the leagues and say stuff you really to the powers that be. And Rotherham, they did all right, didn't they?
Yeah, they have them.
I can't believe how harsh it was at the time. And I can't imagine it'll ever be as harsh again. But in 2008, whenever it was, oh dear. A totally separate connection with Bournemouth, My lovely friend Anne Diamond, she grew up in Bournemouth after Malvern in Worcestershire. Her family moved to Bournemouth, so she's still got family in Bournemouth. And so I've been down to Bournemouth with her in my time. And I've got a very close friend of mine who's formerly a Luton supporter, and we grew up together. He lives in Bournemouth, but I'm afraid he supports Bournemouth now. Still speaks.
Has he? Well, Luton appointed Nathan Jones in January 2016. So it was towards the end of your time as chairman there. And he seems to be much loved at Kenilworth Road. How did the guys behind the scenes manage to convince him to leave Brighton, who were a side that were really very much on the up?
Well, I mean, from what I know, and I don't hire and fire That's when, incidentally, when I was asked to be chairman of Luton, the BBC, for whom I work, said, well, you can do it, but you can't hire and fire, you can't do executive decisions, you can be a figurehead, which is what I was. So, you know, all credit to our chief exec, Gary Sweet, and the people who advised him, football people who advised him, and the board of directors all getting together and looking at the options. And they fancied someone who was young, ambitious, hungry, had modern, forward-thinking ideas, and someone who had a little bit of a connection with Luton, because, you know, Nathan Jones was on the books as a player at Luton.
Yeah.
Way back in the 90s when David Pleat was manager. He didn't particularly make it as a player at Luton, but he went on to have lots of coaching experience on the continent and then coaching experience at Brighton. He seemed, and Charlton, I think, he just seemed the perfect guy. And after they interviewed him, they were ferociously impressed with him. And he came in and did a wonderful job. And he is much loved by the Luton fans, but there is a bit of a caveat because he went away and to Stoke City, to everyone's surprise. So everyone is absolutely furious about it, angry, really angry. And it's taken quite a while for him to win fans back, to be honest. It's amazing that he has come back. I wouldn't have thought it was remotely possible how bitter people were about his departure to Stoke. But having said that, it was a wonderful decision and a brave decision by our directors to get him back at a time when he'd lost his job at Stoke, and Luton fans would have said that's the last thing in the world we want is Nathan Jones to come back. But he came back and did a phenomenal job keeping us in the Championship last season. There were about 9 games to go. We were 6 points adrift, and he kept us up, and he's done a really good job ever since. So all is well now, and he is really very, very popular guy. But found the time that he left so suddenly, the beginning of the transfer window a couple of years ago, that was tough for Luton fans to stomach.
Yeah, most definitely, and I can understand the feeling there as well. Of course, we had our own situation with Eddie going to Burnley, but he did come back, and the remarkable job he's done, well, did ever since, until last season. You know, we'll be forever thankful for, because we are a small club, but a club that a meteoric rise. But when you step down from your position, Nick, you know, of course, you made Luton a stable club. Did you imagine reaching the Championship so quickly?
Well, I mean, yeah, you say I made the club a stable club. Honestly, I can take no credit for that. I was just part of the team. It was the investors and the people who make the decisions who did all that, but I was proud to be part of it, very proud to be part of it. Well, the ambition was to get back to the Championship by 2020, the year 2020, and the consortium called themselves 2020. So they sort of did it, didn't they? And it was also hoped that we'd have a new stadium by around about 2020. Well, we got permission for it in 2020, and hopefully it'll come, you know, within the next 2 or 3 years. It's all, you know, going ahead very well. It's not easy with the pandemic, of course, you can imagine. But yeah, I'm perhaps surprised how quickly we got through League One. I thought we'd go straight through League Two when we were promoted, but that was a bit tougher than we expected. But we did get up, and then the first season in League One, whoosh, straight through and won it. And that was a pretty amazing, you know, thing, because, you know, 2 years earlier we'd been playing, say, Tamworth or Ebbsfleet. Suddenly we're playing Sunderland in front of up to 47,000 crowds. All quick, and it just seemed, crikey, we really have come up quickly. And we ended up above all that lot and won that title. And having been deprived of our manager mid-season, Nathan went off to Stoke. Mick Harford took over, who is the legend of all legends at Kenilworth Road, and steered us to the Championship in glorious style, winning the title, and up we went. And then, you know, it was very tough going in the Championship our first season. I mean, the comparative budgets, I know small clubs go on about this all the time, but it is relevant. You know, how do you attract the best players if you can only be paying them, you know, a quarter or less than other clubs are offering? Very difficult. But I'm a great believer, and I know we are at the club, in the word team. You're getting the right blend. You don't have to have superstars who cost 50 million to bring in and who are on, you know, 50,000 a week or more. And there were players last season on 100,000 a week in the Championship. It's all about getting the blend, the team, everyone working for everyone else. And when Nathan came back in a space of 9 games, we just had a brilliant run and stayed up. And that's what we're doing again this season. I accept that we're going to win some, lose some. But if we do that, that's enough to stay up and finish, I hope, mid-table. But we're ambitious. We certainly want to be at the top end. And the target is ultimately the Premier League.
And you mentioned it earlier on. Of course, Kenilworth, much loved stadium, having to walk through the gardens. But for Luton to grow, and move is really needed, isn't it, Nick? So can you tell us a little bit more about Power Court, as it seems like work's going to commence pretty soon?
Yeah, well, Power Court's an area that used to have a power station on it, hence the name. It used to be a great big cooling tower. In the centre of Luton, this was. So, it is brilliant that they've got a site in the middle of the town. Couldn't be better from a transport point of view. A lot of clubs, as you know, have grounds out of town now, which are great anyways, so lots of space, but somehow don't always recapture the soul of the original ground. And I think we will, because it's right in the middle of town. It'll hold, we reckon, about 18,000, but it'll have the capacity to go up. But we're sort of at this stage, we've got a fairly modest ambition of 18,000. That's still a decent crowd. But almost equally importantly is the fact it'll have so many facilities. As you know, football grounds in days gone by only were properly used once a fortnight for a football match. Now they have to be used 14 days a fortnight, really, to try and capitalise on the space and the facilities, etc. they've got. And the new ground will have those sort of facilities for conferencing and things like that. And the whole area is going to be really uplifted in the centre of Luton. And there's talk of having a cinema and a health centre and restaurants and loads of residential accommodation around the ground, which will all be owned by Luton Town Football Club initially. And that, will be a great source of income for the club. So one way or the other, it's a very exciting time. And we hope, they will start digging sometime this year. But, the pandemic has held things back a bit. But we are forging ahead. And I'm very hopeful that, and certainly the developers are hopeful, that we'll be playing in the new ground in 2024.
Excellent. Well, moving on to this weekend's game. Of course, it's the second game in quite quick succession, and it was a 0-0 draw between us. Should we say it was a little bit drab? It wasn't. Luton set out to stop Bournemouth, but it wasn't the most exciting game of football. I'm sure you'd agree, Nick. Do tell us a little bit more about the standout players in the Luton squad who we should be looking out for this weekend.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad a game, actually, and I thought we played quite well. And I was pleased with the way we played, and we created chances.
Yeah.
Could have won it. But, I'm not so sure we set out just to stop Bournemouth, but because I think we've got a lot of flair players ourselves. So,
yeah,
I wouldn't let you get away with that one. But that apart, well, someone who's been man of the match many times this season is a guy called Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, who we've got on loan from Leicester City. He really is a quality footballer and, can dictate a game. He's got so much skill, so much vision. Scored a lovely goal the other day for us to beat Bristol City, I think it was. But we've got other players who on their day, can really catch the eye. James Collins, a lot of goals. He's a good old-fashioned, solid centre forward who gets in there where it hurts, and takes his chances. We've got a goalkeeper who had a horrendous start with us, Simon Sluga, who's a Croatian international, who's just given birth, or his wife's just given birth. Sorry, he's not that brilliant. Both our goalkeepers, our two, mainstream goalkeepers, are both produced in the last week or so. And he has turned to an absolutely brilliant goalkeeper in terms of shot stopping from impossible situations. We've got Sonny Bradley, who is our centre half, who's about 9 foot tall, and he stops everything in the air, and he's become an inspirational captain, I think, recently. Up front, when he comes on, often as an impact sub, Kazenga Luar catches the eye because he's a very, very skillful player, twists and turns and whatever. We've got a guy who Bournemouth fans remember, Harry Cornick, who
yes,
is a very dangerous player because his immense pace And I think he frightens defences, because if he gets a decent run, he will outstrip anyone. And he scored some valuable goals for us. And he's a very good out player, you know, for us to, coming out of defence, if Harry Cornick's up there, bang the ball up to him and he will really stretch people. But I would stress that it is not a side of stars, it is a side of team players. And they've rotated very much this season. And one player I must pick out, actually, is a guy called Peli Ruddock Mapanzu. He played for us in the conference. We signed him from West Ham in the conference. He was an outstanding player in the conference, and he's still an outstanding player in the championship. He scored in all those divisions: Conference, League Two, League One, the championship. It's quite something, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
To be able to all those divisions up. And someone we're very proud of. And someone who we're also very proud of, who recently moved, was James Justin, our right back. Well, left back he played for us, but he's really a right back, who's gone on to do so well at Leicester City in the Premier League. Came through from about the age of 8. But anyway, he's not playing for us now, but we absolutely love that guy. Someone we're very proud of. Just while I think about it, talking about Bournemouth and games that we've played in the past, one of my outstanding games involving Bournemouth was a game when I first came to Birmingham, because I worked in Birmingham in newspapers and local radio before I went to London to do breakfast telly and ITV Sport. And I saw Aston Villa play Bournemouth in about 1972 in the old Division 3. Aston Villa were top, Bournemouth were second. There was a crowd in Division 3 of 48,000 people. Can you believe that? 48,000 at Villa Park. And Villa won, I think, 2-1. And playing for Bournemouth that day were Ted McDougall and Phil Boyer. Wow, what players they were. And Villa had players like Rioch, who was an ex-Luton legend. So I loved watching Villa in those days. I couldn't get to Luton games. I'd often go and watch Villa. And they were getting crowds of, say, up to 48,000 in the 3rd division. Stonking game it was. Anyway,
of course, one of our ends is actually named after Ted McDougall as well, the Ted Shed, we call it. One player that is going to be back for the game on Saturday is going to be Jack Stacey, a player who did very, very well. He is going to be back.
I'm delighted for him, because I followed his progress with great interest. He was absolutely terrific for us, terrific player. And he at right back and James Justin at left back were absolutely key players, pivotal players for us in winning promotion from League One. Not only were they good defenders, but they were brilliant, as you know, sprinting down, getting to the line and pulling it back. And James Collins, who I mentioned earlier, so many of his goals were due to the wonderful breaks down the right by Jack Stacey. And another reason why it was so tough for us when we went up to the Championship, our two outstanding players, James Justin and Jack Stacey, both left. So we go up and we weaken the side, you know, the way it goes, you know, all the time. But, you know, we still did okay in the end. But Jack Stacey was a marvellous player for us. I was really sorry to see him go, but delighted for him to see him make progress. And it'd be lovely to see him, albeit via iFollow, to see him playing on Saturday. And just hope he isn't quite as successful as he was with us.
Well, I do this with every guest I have on, Nick. You know what I'm going to ask you. If you've seen our previous videos, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your prediction for Saturday?
I think Luton might sneak it. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Luton. I think it'll be a tight game. We are playing with quite a lot of confidence at the moment. We just had a good win in the FA Cup against Reading. We beat Bristol City just before that. The players are full of confidence, and I think being away from home is not as daunting for players as perhaps it used to be, because there's no crowd. So daunting is a bit of a strong word, but you know what I mean. It's more of a level playing field. Talk about mixing metaphors and all that, but it is a level playing field. It's just a game of football on a pitch, and the home and away advantage doesn't mean so much at the moment. And I'm very hopeful we'll do well. I'd be very happy with a draw, but absolutely delighted if we could win it. And who knows? Bournemouth are a lovely side, and I've got you know, great admiration for Bournemouth. And who knows? Let's just see what happens. I'm looking forward to watching it, because I think it'll be a good open game.
Yeah, well, most definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this show, Nick. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and all the very, very best for the future.
Thank you. Good to talk to you. Thanks, Craig, very much, and good luck to Bournemouth in the future.
Thank you so much, Nick. All the best. Well, thank you for joining me again on this opposition preview show. Do remember, after the game, we will have our famous free-for-alls, so please do get involved. All you need to do is go to afcbpodcast.com/take part. Also, Teach will be round with his player ratings after the game as well. So do subscribe, like and follow, and I'll see you in the next video. Up the cherries.